Welcome to the deep dive. If you're looking for a shortcut to really getting your head around a complex topic, you are definitely in the right place.
hmm
Today we're embarking on, well, a pretty fascinating journey. We're doing a deep dive into Willard Peak Road, that's Forest Road 2008-4, up in Box Elder County, Utah. Our mission really is to unpack all the layers of this captivating road and the landscape around it. We're pulling out the key insights from the source material you shared with us. And you'll find this isn't just about like a road. It's this whole ecosystem. History, recreation, conservation, it's all tied together.
That's exactly right. And throughout this deep dive, we'll dig into the road's unique characteristics, its role as a gateway to iconic spots like Willard Peak and Inspiration Point. That's key. We'll also explore the history, the really significant history of water management with Perry Reservoir. And then there's the enduring legacy of the Civilian Conservation Corps, the CCC. Their impact was, well, profound. And finally, we'll kind of zoom out and place it all in the bigger picture, the Winto Wasatch National Forest. You'll see how all these threads weave together. It's quite a dynamic picture.
Okay, so our journey starts in Mantua, Utah. It's a small town, maybe 60 miles north of Salt Lake City.
That's the one.
And if you head there, Main Street in Mantua just sort of becomes Willard Peak Road
Yeah.
and heads right into the Wasatch Range.
Exactly. It flows right into it. And from there, the road, well, it pretty quickly shows its true colors. It starts out paved, yeah, but that only lasts about a mile and a half. Then it turns to dirt. As you climb, you hit a gate at 1.9 miles. Then there's an informational kiosk at 2.6 miles. That's kind of where it really starts getting rough. And then way up at the 9.4-mile mark, you'll see the Willard Basin sign. That tells you you've hit the high point before the road starts dropping down again.
And when the sources describe it as rough, they really mean it, huh? Things like very rough, washboard, dusty, especially with all the ATVs and trucks using it.
Oh, yeah.
And you might run into mild washouts or sections that are very narrow and snow blocking the way, even in summer.
That's right. And the implications of that are, well, pretty straightforward. There's an explicit recommendation for high clearance or 4x4 vehicles. You definitely need one. It actually acts as a sort of natural filter for who can get up there, which helps preserve some of that rugged feel. But, it also highlights the constant need for maintenance in such a tough environment.
Okay, so given how rugged it is, I'm guessing it's not open all year round. What's the deal with seasonal access? Why the closures?
That's a really important point. So why is it closed every year from November 15th to July 15th? It's very specific. The reason is to protect the Rocky Mountain goat kidding areas. These are critical habitats during that time.
Ah,
And they don't plow it. The road opening depends entirely on when the snow melts naturally, so that can easily push access well into July some years.
right.
For the latest info, you really have to check with the U.S. Forest Service. It just shows a clear conservation priority, balancing access with protecting the wildlife.
So those tough conditions, they're really just part of the adventure to get to some pretty amazing places.
Yeah.
And top of the list has got to be Willard Peak itself. We're talking, what, 9,763 feet? That's 2,976 meters. And a prominence of 3,243 feet, or 988 meters.
Right.
And prominence, for those listening, that basically tells you how much a peak really stands out from the terrain around it.
Yeah.
It's independent height.
Exactly. A good measure of its stature.
And it sits right on the border between Box Elder and Weber counties. Plus, it's the highest point in Weber County and the whole northern Wasatch Range. Quite the landmark.
And the geology is fascinating, too. Willard Peak is, it's an integral part of the Wasatch Range, which itself is a sub-range of the Rockies, the bedrock. Mostly ancient Cambrian sedimentary rock. We're talking hundreds of millions of years old.
Wow.
And interestingly, there's the nearby Willard Mining District. It historically produced a little bit of iron ore, not much, but the really big geological feature is the Willard Thrust Fault nearby. That points to massive tectonic forces shaking this landscape, basically shoving older rock layers up over younger ones.
Yeah, beyond the geology and the stats, the name itself has a bit of a complicated story, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
Officially, it's named for Willard Richards, lived 1804 to 1854. And it got on the map, scientifically speaking, in 1877. The Hayden Survey used it as a triangulation station.
Right. One of those key mapping points. The Hayden Survey was crucial for mapping the West back then. Triangulation stations were fixed points they used for accurate measurements over large areas.
But here's the twist. Some historical records suggest Willard's Peak might have actually referred to Ben Lomond Mountain first, which is, what, a mile and a half southeast?
That's the story. It really shows how place names can kind of shift and evolve over time. History gets a bit fuzzy.
Okay, so if you want to climb it, recreationally? What are the options?
Well, there are a couple of main routes. You could do a long hike, something like 20 miles, approaching via Ben Lomond. But honestly, the preferred route for most people is driving up that rough Willard Peak Road to the trailhead at mile 11.1 in Willard Basin.
Right.
And from that trailhead, the hike itself is relatively short. It's about 3/4 of a mile, climbing 500 feet to get to the shoulder of the peak. Then it's another half mile, gaining another 500 feet or so right to the summit.
And the reward for that drive and hike? The views, consistently called extraordinary. But it's more than just a pretty view, right? It sounds like you get this incredible perspective on the geology, this huge multi-state view you don't get just anywhere.
That's exactly it. You get these sweeping panoramas. You can see the entire Great Salt Lake, Ogden City, Cache Valley, and on a really clear day, yeah, your view stretches into parts of Idaho, Nevada, even Wyoming. It's quite something.
But the summit isn't the only viewpoint destination up there. If you keep going on FR 2008-4, you get to Inspiration Point.
That's right. It's the actual dead end of the road. Locals sometimes call it Willard Mountain. It's a bit lower, around 9,393 feet, 2,863 meters. And unlike the peak summit, the spot's actually developed. There's a big parking area, guardrails, even a park bench to just sit and take it all in.
But getting there still requires that same rugged road, right?
Yeah.
4x4 is still highly recommended.
Oh, absolutely. Same challenging road, same recommendation. High clearance, 4x4 is your best bet. But once you're there, you get those sweeping vistas again. Salt Lake City, most of the Wasatch Front, Huntsville, Cache Valley. And again, on clear days, those multi-state views. Utah, Idaho, Nevada, Wyoming. And at night, it's pretty magical. The city lights of Salt Lake and Logan spread out below. It's a really captivating sight.
With all that varied terrain, high peaks, lower valleys, what kind of wildlife are you likely to see up there?
Well, the area is particularly famous for its mountain goats. You see them pretty often, especially higher up. They're quite prominent. But you'll also commonly spot deer, moose, maybe elk, and bobcats are known to be in the area too, though they're more elusive. The habitats are really diverse. You've got these dense groves of pine, aspen, oak trees that supports a wide variety of animals throughout the year.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about water. It's always a critical issue in Utah, specifically Perry Reservoir. And we should be clear, this is the one in Utah, not Kansas, right?
Yeah, definitely the one in Utah. Its history is deeply tied to the local community there. Perry, Utah was originally called 3 Mile Creek, and its really history with water was, well, a struggle. Settlers faced really severe water scarcity. Back in 1894, they started building a reservoir, but it was only partially finished, and that led to disaster. Devastating floods hit in 1896 and again in 1923, wiping out homes, farmland. Eventually, things got more reliable with the Pine View Canal and a proper culinary water system built around 1911. It really highlights those early challenges and, the ingenuity needed to make arid places livable.
So given that difficult past, what's the water situation like today around Perry? What role do these reservoirs play now, besides just irrigation?
Well, Perry Reservoir's main job today is still providing irrigation water. It supports agriculture in Weber, Davis, and Box Elder counties. That's vital. But beyond that, the Perry area is also a jumping-off point for recreation, especially off-roading into the high country. And nearby, you've got Mantua Reservoir. People call it a hidden gem. Good for swimming, paddle boarding, kayaking, fishing too, rainbow trout, bass. And then there's Willard Bay State Park, just about 5 miles west. That's a major recreational hub. Boating, fishing for crappie, walleye, catfish, plus camping, picnicking. So you see this real blend of essential resource management for farming and then pretty robust opportunities for recreation.
Stepping back again, thinking about the Great Salt Lake nearby and the whole regional ecosystem.
Yeah.
Are there bigger environmental concerns linked to water here?
Oh, absolutely. If you look at the bigger picture, the Bear River Valley, where this is all located, it's nestled between the Wasatch Mountains and the Bear River Migratory Bird Refuge. That makes it incredibly ecologically sensitive, especially for water birds.
Right.
Historically, flooding from rapid snowmelt or big storms has always been an issue. That's why they built debris basins to try and manage that risk. Then in the mid-'80s, the Great Salt Lake rose dramatically, which actually damaged a lot of valuable wetlands, including parts of the bird refuge. More recently, the concern is the opposite. The shrinking lake. We're seeing dust plumes blowing off the exposed lake bed, impacting air quality, potentially health, in Box Elder County and beyond. And it's not just the Great Salt Lake. Other reservoirs in the region, like Pineview, have had serious problems. Toxic algae blooms, critically low water levels. It really underscores how interconnected and, frankly, vulnerable the whole regional water system is. We need a really holistic, forward-thinking approach to managing it.
Beyond the geology and the views, this landscape also holds stories of significant human effort. One huge one is the Civilian Conservation Corps, the CCC. What was their mission exactly? What kind of work did they do?
The CCC, yeah, they were a cornerstone of FDR's New Deal, operating from 33 to 42. Their mission was twofold, really. One, alleviate the massive unemployment among young unmarried men during the Great Depression, get them working. And two, tackle urgent national conservation needs.
Yeah.
And their achievements nationally were just staggering. They planted something like 3 billion trees.
Wow.
Built 125,000 miles of roads and trails, 6 million erosion control structures, fought forest fires. It was a massive nationwide effort to put people to work improving the land.
A huge national program. How
Yeah.
did Utah fit into that? What was the CCC's impact here specifically?
Utah was a major player. The state consistently had 30 to 35 active camps. Over 22,000 Utah men worked in the CCC, plus another 23,000 guys brought in from out of state.
It's a significant presence.
Very significant. And their work here included building what they called low-standard roads, basic access roads. They built check dams and silt dams to control floods and erosion, which was a huge problem. And they did extensive terracing work on hillsides.
Okay, so they did a lot of road and erosion work. Does that mean they were directly involved with Willard Peak Road itself? Is there a direct link?
Well, Willard Peak Road isn't explicitly listed in the records we have as, like, CCC project number XYZ. But the source material strongly implies their involvement. Apparently, there was a severe environmental event, probably a major flood or erosion event, around 1936. That triggered what they called aggressive measures in the Willard Peak area.
Okay.
Between 1936 and 1941, the CCC built about 700 miles of terraces and trenches and fences across 1,500 acres right around Willard Peak.
700 miles. That's incredible.
It's a massive amount of earthwork. Willard City even donated over 1,800 acres to the Forest Service specifically for this rehabilitation work. The main goals were flood control and stopping that severe erosion, and you just can't do that scale of work in that terrain without improving or building roads for access. So while not explicitly named, roadwork would almost certainly have been part of it.
That's fascinating history. But what about today? Can you actually see the results of their work? What's the tangible legacy up there now?
Oh, absolutely. The physical legacy of the CCC around Willard Basin is described as still readily visible. Those extensive terraces and trenches they built back in the late 30s, they're still there. And remarkably, they're still doing their job controlling erosion, managing water runoff, nearly a century later.
Amazing.
There's even an informational sign up there around 8,800 feet near Willard Basin, right at the top of the switchbacks, that talks about this history. These structures are really tangible reminders of effective long-term conservation work.
Speaking of Willard Basin, that area has a couple of key features visitors need to know about. First, the Willard Basin Overlook. Tell us about that.
Right. The Overlook. It's located up on a ridge crest, just north of the main basin area. You get to it via Willard Peak Road. There's a large parking area and that informational sign I mentioned. From the Overlook itself, you get really prominent views looking back towards Willard Peak in the distance, and you can also see the road winding its way across the head of the basin below. It's a great vantage point, but it's important to know access into the basin itself beyond the Overlook can often be blocked. There's a gate there that's frequently closed to vehicles because snowdrifts can linger on that trail well into June, sometimes even later.
Okay, and then there's the campground in Willard Basin. This seems to cause some confusion for people, right? It's listed on maps, but the reality is different.
Yeah, this is a really crucial point to clarify. The Willard Basin Campground is unequivocally defunct, that's the word used. It's a former campsite.
So don't plan on amenities.
Exactly. There are basically no functional picnic tables or restrooms left. These are just primitive, abandoned sites located at that 11.1-mile mark on the road. Unfortunately, they've been vandalized over the years. It's a stark contrast to the active facilities down at Willard Bay State Park, like the North and South Marinas. Those are modern, state-of-the-art campgrounds with hot showers, RV hookups, the works. You need reservations there.
Got it.
It really shows how recreational infrastructure changes, you know? Management priorities shift, and some older sites just aren't maintained anymore.
All right, to kind of bring this all together, let's zoom out one last time. place Willard Peak Road in the bigger context of Box Elder County and this huge area,
Yeah.
the Uinta-Wasatch Cache National Forest.
Definitely. Willard Peak Road runs right through a significant piece of the Uinta-Wasatch Cache National Forest. We're talking about a vast area, 2.2 million acres, covering parts of northern Utah and even a bit of southwestern Wyoming. The climate up in these higher elevations. Think cold, snowy winters and cool, dry summers. Most of the precipitation falls between October and March, and two key things influence that precipitation. First, the orographic effect air cools as it's forced up over the mountains, dropping more moisture, especially on these western slopes.
Mm-hmm.
And second, lake effect snow. Moisture picked up from the Great Salt Lake often dumps significant extra snow here, boosting the snowpack, which is critical for water resources down the line.
That unique climate, that mix of mountain effects and lake effects, how does that shape the plant and animal life we find there?
It creates incredibly diverse habitats. Higher up, you have these lovely dense groves of pine, aspen, and oak. Lower down, it transitions more into sagebrush flats and juniper forests. And this variety of vegetation supports a really rich array of wildlife. We mentioned the common sightings: deer, moose, elk, bobcats, and of course those famous mountain goats.
Right?
And don't forget the proximity to the Bear River Migratory Bird Refuge. That's a critical stopover for over 200 species of water birds, including huge flocks of tundra swans sometimes. Plus you have bison out on Antelope Island in the Great Salt Lake. So yeah, the unique geography and climate lead directly to this really impressive biodiversity. It's a vibrant ecosystem.
Okay, so for listeners who are maybe inspired by this and want to go experience it themselves, what recreational opportunities are we talking about? And maybe more importantly, what are the key rules or principles they need to follow to help protect this place?
Great question. The region offers stuff year-round, really. Hiking, mountain biking, OHV, and ATV riding are huge. Camping, fishing, hunting, bird watching. Lots to do. Willard Peak Road itself is particularly popular for dispersed camping, just finding a spot off the road, plus mountain biking and OHV use. Now, for OHVs, there are crucial rules. Helmets are mandatory for anyone under 18. In sandy areas like dunes, you need those tall red or orange whip flags for visibility.
Okay.
Your muffler needs a spark arrestor that's critical to prevent wildfires. And crucially, you must stay on designated roads and trails. No cutting across the landscape. For dispersed camping, the mantra is leave no trace. Use sites that have clearly been used before, ideally on bare soil. Camp at least 200 feet away from lakes, streams, any water source. If there's an existing fire ring, use it. Don't build new ones. And absolutely pack out everything you pack in trash, food scraps, everything. Leave it truly pristine. Campfires are generally allowed unless there are specific fire restrictions in place because of dry conditions, which happens often in the summer. Always check first. You know, it all comes back to that question, how do we enjoy these amazing places responsibly, ensuring they're protected for the future?
So wrapping this up, it seems clear Willard Peak Road, FR 2008-4, it's really so much more than just a dirt track through the mountains, isn't it? It's like this vital artery connecting you to the heart of Box Elder County's high country, connects you to the nature, the history, the human story.
Absolutely. From that challenging but incredibly rewarding drive up to the breathtaking views at Willard Peak and Inspiration Point, to digging into that complex history of water management around Perry Reservoir, and then uncovering that lasting legacy of the Civilian Conservation Corps. It's a place layered with stories. And yeah, remembering that key difference, the Willard Basin Campground is defunct, abandoned. The real, active, modern camping is down at Willard Bay State Park. That evolution is part of the story, too. This whole deep dive, I think, really highlights this intricate dance between the geology, the climate, the human history, both struggles and triumphs like the CCC work and the ongoing conservation efforts needed today. All these elements are constantly interacting, shaping this landscape and, you know, its future.
Yeah, it really makes you think. Especially seeing how that CCC work from nearly a century ago is still functioning, still providing benefits. And then you think about the ongoing challenges we face across the West, water scarcity, environmental change. It leaves you with a question, doesn't it? What critical lessons can we take from historical interventions like the CCC's work on Willard Peak, and how can we apply them now to ensure we're good stewards of these resources for generations yet to come? Maybe thinking out how even seemingly small actions today could leave a tangible, positive legacy far into the future, just like those terraces still holding the mountainside together.